All right, it is time for Behind Enemy Lines. I'm Jeff Hartman, today joined by Dan Viens of Seahawks Forever podcast, obviously covering the Steelers' Week 2 opponent, the Seattle Seahawks. Dan, welcome to the show. How are you?
It's good to see you again, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And this is a dubious game for Steelers fans, and I'll tell you why. Week 2, Seattle Seahawks coming to Pittsburgh. The last time that happened was in 2019, and Ben Roethlisberger blew out his elbow. So I'm not trying to bring up the bad juju right away, but for me as a Steeler fan that very much remembers that moment very vividly, the Seahawks and the Steelers, they have a history that's not just Super Bowl 40. But let's talk about this team and after Week 1. So Week 1, the Seahawks lose a tough one to the San Francisco 49ers. Where's your thoughts on the Seahawks, who had an interesting offseason, in my opinion, with the trade with DK Metcalf to Pittsburgh, bringing in Sam Darnold? What's your take on the Seahawks at this juncture?
Lots of changes, mostly on offense, right? 13 players on defense that logged over 300 snaps last year back. A lot of continuity on that side, and we saw how well that defense finished last year after they kind of figured out how to play within Mike McDonald's scheme and after they made some changes at linebacker. The offense, though, 6 new players, including the quarterback, that's always a big deal, and the play caller, and the offensive line coach, and the run game coordinator. I call it a remodeling over the offseason of the offense. And the most perplexing thing about Week 1 and frustrating thing is that they didn't deliver on what was promised over the offseason. The whole reason that Mike McDonald hired someone like Clint Kubiak and brought John Benton along with him was so that they could align the offense and the defense, play offense that's complementary to that defense and in a style that Mike McDonald wants that Ryan Grubb didn't give them last year, and that is running that old West Coast kind of offense that's been molded into the McVay, Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell offense. But it's about balance and running the football. A lot of 12 personnel. We use a fullback now. Getting back to running the football, more play action, more under center. And we didn't see any of that yesterday. We saw it on the second drive of the game, which enabled them to march down the field and score a touchdown. And we thought, okay, everything's going to be fine after a real spotty first drive. And then they completely got away from it. It's as if Ryan Grubb still had his key card and he scanned it in and snuck in and stole the headset. They went only 2 play action passes the entire game. Got away from what worked on that drive. Got away from Zach Charbonnet, went more to Ken Walker. Weren't able to run the football after that. Way too much shotgun. It just wasn't in the image that we were promised the offense was going to look like. I expected growing pains, and that's what I'm hoping this was. But not a great debut for Clint Kubiak as a play caller.
I was going to say, I mean, when I think back, and as you just alluded to, like, talk about an overhaul on the offensive side of the ball and in every potential facet. And from afar, I looked at the Seahawks and said, what are they doing? This doesn't make any sense. Like, you're trading away your quarterback, the number 1 target for the quarterback. But I guess my question is, do you at least see where this could end up, even though you didn't see it in Week 1?
Absolutely, because this year I got a lot of access to training camp. I got to see almost every training camp practice up close, and I saw it every single day. I saw Sam Darnold's internal clock speed up as camp went along. I saw that offense and defense battle it out every day, back and forth. Guys like Julian Love saying that offense is making us better as a defense. We can see the pieces coming together. I saw the offensive line be more cohesive and be more physical. And I saw what a good fit Darnold is for that offensive system. And then in Week 2, when they played the starters the most early in the game, we saw that offense absolutely dominate Kansas City for 3 or 4 drives. And say what you want about preseason football, but they had 7 or 8 defensive starters on the field as well. And it was just the concept of what we were seeing that all looked like exactly as they promised. I almost wonder if Clint Kubiak thought himself a little bit Week 1. Like, okay, we've been talking about running the football all offseason. Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh knows this scheme as well as anyone because he goes up against it in practice every day. And so maybe they tried to outsmart themselves a little bit and we'll throw it around a little more and we'll do more shotgun and scrap the play action. It didn't work.
Well, if you want to run the football, the Pittsburgh Steelers might be a team to get right against after giving up 182 yards on the ground to the New York Jets, which is a different style offense. You know, Justin Fields is a Lamar Jackson-esque type quarterback in terms of his ability to run and throw. He looked phenomenal, but that's neither here nor there. What's your take on the Steelers defense? Let's focus on the Seahawks offense versus the Steelers defense. It's only 1 week. I would expect the Steelers to be better prepared in week 2 than they were in week 1. But how do you think the Seahawks are going to approach this upcoming matchup?
Well, I think what's interesting, and this is always what's so fascinating about week 2, right, is week 1, we always say it tells the most lies. We really don't know what we're going to get. And then we overreact to what we do get. And, maybe the Steelers' run defense isn't that bad. It's just that the Jets had a really good plan and came out ready to play. The Seahawks are going to try to get back to running the football. Mike McDonald talked about it in his press conference and his radio show yesterday. Want to see more of that play action. Want to see more running the football. Late in the game, when they needed to drive down the field and got that last field goal to take the lead, they did get back to it a little bit. So I think you're going to see them adamant this week about running the football. But at the same time, the Steelers are going to come out really motivated and determined to stop the run. And I think that's probably where this game is going to be decided is who wins out. I was surprised to see the Steelers, frankly, give up that much yardage on the ground.
So was I.
That many points. I mean, when I looked at this game when the schedule first came out, I picked it as a Seahawks loss. Week 2, because I didn't know what they were going to get from Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't officially signed at the time, but we knew it was going to happen. But I thought that defense was going to be good enough that this young offense was going to take some time to gel, and that was probably going to decide the game. So I was really surprised to see that they gave up so many rushing yards.
Well, let's talk about the strength of the Seahawks team is their defense. They have a very good defense. I think a very underrated defense. When you talk about the best defenses in the league, Seattle doesn't get mentioned, although I think they should. And when you go against Pittsburgh, now it's a different dynamic. Yeah, I'm not talking about the 34 points that were put up on the board last week. I'm talking about the fact that this Steelers team, probably for the first time since Ben Roethlisberger was under center, they are looking at different avenues of moving the ball. They typically are, we want to establish the run. And honestly, they did a ton of play action when they couldn't run the football last week in week 1. 3 of the 4 touchdown passes by Aaron Rodgers were on play action. It was his highest number for a really long time. They only ran the ball for 53 yards in that game with the longest run, 9 yards. So if you're the Seahawks, how are you approaching that Steelers offense, which is still in that, I don't know, it's definitely in its early stages, we'll put it that way.
It's funny what you point out there about play action. This was a theme a lot last year when Ryan Grubb just couldn't get a running game going and really didn't even try, and also didn't call play action. There's all sorts of data that play action works even when the running game is not successful. This is what I'll say about the Seahawks defense and their performance in week 1. Is they were very, very good, despite the fact that they lost the time possession battle 2-1, and the offense couldn't sustain drives, and they had to be out there. They still held Christian McCaffrey to 3 yards a carry. They pressured Brock Purdy at a rate. They only got to him once, Julian Love on a sack, but they pressured him at his highest rate he's ever seen in his career, almost a 60% pressure rate throughout the game. Derek Hall kind of had his way with Trent Williams. Williams, I think, was credited with 8 pressures given up yesterday. And that was all despite losing rookie safety Nick Emenwari on the 5th play of the game to an ankle injury. And he was a huge, huge part of their game plan. And McDonald admitted after the game that after he went out, they basically played base the rest of the game. Drake Thomas coming in is kind of to sort of take that role from Emenwari. And yet they still were able to hold the 49ers to 10 points until that the play at the very end of the game and keep McCaffrey in check, at least in the running game. He did catch 8 balls, and that's kind of what decided the game late. I expect now with a full week to plan for how to approach the Steelers without Emenwari, that I think you'll see some more of those. I think you'll see McDonald dial up some of that pressure. It's a young offensive line over there, talented, but young. A lot of guys that I liked in the last couple of drafts are all wearing Steeler colors right now up front. I think you'll see that a little bit more because he doesn't have to play on his heels as much. It was basically plan B last week after Emenwari went out, even though plan B was pretty effective.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Seahawks approach this Steelers offense. The Steelers still do want to run the football, and they are not going to hang their hat on 50 yards a game and say, yeah, that's good enough. No, Mike Tomlin spoke in his press conference Tuesday that is going to be paramount is for them to establish the run. And by most metrics, they would tell you that a young offensive line that might be a little experienced, getting them moving forward and not always backwards is a good thing. But at the same time, I wonder what are the weaknesses in that Seahawks defense? You know, if there's a team that's putting together a plan and it's just a plan on paper, what would be those criteria to move the ball successfully against Seattle?
Unfortunately for us, based on what you just said a moment ago, and this goes back to Mike McDonald's time as defensive coordinator in Baltimore as well. Kind of the Achilles heel of that defense is against play action. And especially kind of deeper middle of the field play action. And man, that's what Aaron Rodgers has always done well in his career. And that's what stood out to me on Sunday is that middle of the field stuff, just the way he just flicks the ball on those little dig routes and slants. He's still obviously so good at those. The way that Seattle's going to have to try to mitigate that is being better on offense and holding the ball longer, sustaining more drives, maybe playing with a lead. We didn't get to see that enough last year. And you saw it in Baltimore when Mike McDonald gets a chance to play with a lead. That's when he can really go into his bag of tricks. So it's all kind of tied in together, but that is the Achilles heel. And it's something that they're going to have to, how do you mitigate that, right? You get to Rodgers. I think he was sacked 4 times on Sunday.
Yeah, it's hit 7.
Not the mobile guy that he used to be that could, was really sneaky and could really hurt you with his feet. And even though that number I quoted earlier, right, pressuring Purdy almost 60% of the time, McDonald was cranky yesterday and not happy with the pass rush. I think that tells you about where they want to be.
Yeah, fair enough. I want to ask you just about an individual player here. DK Metcalf, was he really disgruntled? Because there's some, I don't know, murmurs out there that he wanted out, and I don't know. Like, what was your take from the Seattle side of things on the DK Metcalf trade to Pittsburgh this offseason?
None of us thought he was, to the point that when reports came out after the trade that he actually asked for one last year as well. And Schneider just shot him down and said, no, that never got out. We didn't know that. I got a chance about a month or two in my old career before the trade to spend some time with DK in the receiver room and the tight ends. They had a little holiday party, and he was the alpha in that room. They all looked to him. They loved him. Tyler Lockett loves him. He was a guy that his teammates really adored, and he was a guy that, for all of his technical faults as a football player and some of his limitations, he's just a guy you want on your football team. And to the point that I was reminded of this as I was logging in, getting ready to talk to you today, that and trust me, the way I format it, none of you will be able to figure it out. But my passwords all are built around DK Metcalf. So really enjoyed having him as a player, and it caught us by surprise. There was a lot of speculation about trading him, but only because of the impending third contract and the financial ramifications and the question of whether that's really where our resources would best be allocated. But still, it was a surprise, and it was super weird to see him out there in Steeler black and yellow on Sunday.
I bet. Now, before we get to predictions, I want to give you the opportunity to ask me if you have any questions about the Steelers heading into week 2, and I'd love to answer those if you have any.
Yeah, I mean, let's stick with DK. First of all, 4 catches, I think 80-something yards. Had that great catch where kind of bobbled it, got tipped, and he turned around, and it was right there for him. Yeah. As far as fan expectations, your expectations go, like, what do you make of his debut?
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple drops. He was targeted 7 times, easily should have probably had 6 catches. But no, he catches a ball, and he's just such a freak of nature. Like, that's the one thing you notice. Like, his physical size and stature, a human being, in my opinion, should not be able to run that fast. But he catches a little screen, a little swing route, and he turns it upfield, makes one guy miss, 31-yard gain. So I want to see DK Metcalf stretch the field a little bit more, but I knew early on, the first play from scrimmage against the Jets, they run a play action, 7-step drop, trying to go deep, and Rodgers gets sacked. He doesn't even have a chance to really look downfield. And you could tell right after that play, the Steelers were not going to be able to really push the ball down the field because the offensive line couldn't give them the help that they need. So I think DK Metcalf's debut was fantastic. We'd love to see him get in the end zone. I want to see what if he's doing any ASL anymore when he scores a touchdown. Right. But no, DK Metcalf as advertised, and he's been a great teammate, a great leader. And that's why I asked about disgruntled, because some people kind of painted him in this weird light. And I was like, I don't think that's true. But yeah, I would say that's the debut for DK.
And as far as that offensive line goes, again, as I mentioned, like a lot of guys love Zach Frazier, love Troy Fatanu, who obviously, played his football in the Pacific Northwest at UW. He's back from injury now. I even love Mason McCormick coming out in the draft. There's a lot of talent there. They've really invested some draft capital in that offensive line. Is it just youth? Is it just growing pains? What do you attribute that to? I know, the Jets have some guys on that side of the ball, but I was shocked by that.
Yeah, Will Anderson had a day, but Broderick Jones, the left tackle, he was drafted in the first round, and they traded up to get him, and everyone has high expectations. He's been stuck at right tackle his entire career. His first year at left, he struggled, and he has technique issues. Mike Tomlin says it's not a confidence thing. He's just got to keep working through it. They're going to give him every opportunity because you invested a first-round draft pick into the young man, and he is a very young man. I just think they need time to gel. Isaac Seumalo at left guard, he missed. He didn't miss. He sat out the entire preseason. They have not played much together as a unit. And then you look at the right side of the line, Frazier, McCormick, Fautanu, all second-year players. They are ridiculously young. I think it's going to get better as the year progresses. And I've always said if they can just do one thing well, run block, pass block, whatever, just do one thing well, and they'll be able to move the ball until they get that cohesiveness together. Unfortunately, after week one, I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, and I can certainly sympathize with offensive line issues with what we've had to face here the last few years in Seattle. So, yeah.
All right, let's talk some predictions. The Steelers are actually giving 2.5 points according to the book in front of me as of us recording this. So Steelers minus 2.5 and a total of 39.5. I want to ask. I don't need a score prediction. Some people just don't like doing it, and I'm fine with that. How do you see this game playing out?
This is going to sound like a cop-out, but I think I have to defer to what I thought about this game when the schedule first came out. I did my schedule prediction then. I had Seattle winning 11 games, but I had them losing week 2. Now, I had them winning week 1, so I'm already behind the curve, right? I just think I'm bullish on this offense. I am. From everything I saw in training camp, it's going to come together at some point. It's going to look like what they promised it will look like and what that scheme has looked like for 30 years in this league. And it's going to give Mike McDonald a chance to win some games with that defense. And I think Sam Darnold is going to be just fine. I think he was better Sunday than fans want to give him credit for just because he didn't throw for 300 yards and a bunch of touchdowns. That being said, I think it's going to take a little bit of time, and going on the road to Pittsburgh with a team that is kind of in a perfect position in a sense, right? You're 1-0, you're coming home for week 2, but you're pissed off with how you played week 1. That's kind of a dangerous combination in the NFL. I'd love to be wrong about this, and it's really important to see how Mike McDonald gets his guys to respond in this situation. But if I was a betting man, and I'm not, and I had to put money on this game, I would probably take the Steelers. In a close one, I just, I think, yeah, at Seahawks Forever on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, is the best way to get all my content, written word on Substack, but also the YouTube channel on Seahawks Forever. Good to see you again. Thanks.